Welcome to the culinary scene. My name is Chef Mike. Today's session is about ranges, range tops, cooktops, any surface that we cook on. For the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to guide you through how to cook on all of these surfaces, as well as some cleaning tips. Now, I'd like to recognize that your ability to ask questions live is so present in this. Our showroom manager here, Lynn Thielen, is on the other side. She's the kind of producing today. She'll handle your questions in the chat section, which down to the bottom by comments. So if you have a question during the session, don't hesitate to put it in there. We'll get those questions answered. She might answer it right away. She may flag me down, or she might know I'm going to get to it. But don't hesitate to empty that question bank. We're going to start with induction. Now, induction looks a lot like the old electric glass top, but it couldn't be any more different. This cooking surface is one of the most responsive in the entire Wolf line. What's important about that is if you're considering gas or induction, know that you don't have to sacrifice anything if you move to induction. It's controllable, it's 40% faster than the gas, and it has all of those things from high sear down to really controlling low temperature. So we're going to do a couple things on this induction surface. I got a large pot of pasta water. What we're going to create during this 45 minutes or so is just a simple family-style pasta dish. We'll call it Seafood Diablo. But I'm going to start with some long pasta. So I want to get this heated. One of the great things about induction is it gives you the ability to really bring large pots of water for whether you're doing canning or whether you're doing pasta or whether you're doing lobster boil, any of those things. It brings them to a boil very quickly. Now I've got this salted water in here for my pasta. When you're making pasta, you want to make sure you salt the water, not to make the pasta salty, but to keep the natural salt that's in pasta in the pasta. So we got that on. I am going to use, because in your induction surface you have the ability to use boost. Now what boost is it will bring about 1.5 times the power to that particular surface and let it come to a boil very quickly. That it does reduce the surrounding burners to about 50% power. It's not a problem, and anytime you can back that off. I've found something about this size will be to a boil in 6 or 7 minutes, maybe a couple of more. This is a nice large pot. So I've got that on, and I'm using the boost. Induction has, through the controls, there are 10 positions. They're not numbered, but they are from simmer all the way up to high. Through the first 7, Wolf gives you very incremental levels of control. So very steady through the bottom. And then 8, 9, and high, big jumps in power to get up to sear. Now, even though you have boost, Wolf doesn't recommend, and I certainly don't recommend, cooking, like searing or sauteing on boost. It's a lot of power, and it may get away from you quickly. One last thing, if you've ever had an electric cooktop and you knew you had time, once you turned the pan on, to go back and cut an onion or a carrot or some celery, this will not be that experience. 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and this will be ready to cook on if you're heating a saute pan. The other thing we're going to cook on here today is I'm going to heat this grill pan up. I normally like to talk about our char. I don't have one in this particular spot in our kitchen. So if you have the char, if you have any questions about the char, don't hesitate to send those to us as well. But I'm going to use this grill pan right on the induction surface. Now this is cast iron. Cast iron is one of your great choices on this surface. People are always worried. This surface is not fragile, folks. It's reinforced with ceramic diamonds to make this glass strong. Don't worry about putting that on there. You can slide pans back and forth and not worry about those. Now, no bam bam, right? You can't be bamming up and down with a cast iron skillet. That might crack the glass, but you got a lot of levity, a lot of leeway in that. Also know that it's going to be, no matter what splatters, the only part that gets hot is the pan. The way induction works is electromagnets, kind of like 8th grade science. Somebody wrapped wire around the nail and put to it and became a magnet. You got thousands of those underneath, changing polarity, agitates the ferrous metal in all the pans. If your pan holds a refrigerator magnet, you're good to go on this surface. So I'm going to heat this up as well. So it's ready. We're going to grill a little lemon in here to go over our pasta. So these two things are heating up. I'm going to slide right here and talk about our gas burners. Now, regardless of the configuration you have, whether it's a gas cooktop, For us, that means knobs on the top. A sealed range top, which means just the top, but the knobs are over here. A dual fuel range, which we'll be in front of in a moment, or a all gas range. All of the burner construction is the same. So if you understand how these burners work, you'll be good to go. I'd like to talk about Wolf's patented dual stack burner, just to show you just for a second what that looks like. One other note on these cooktops too, if you're gonna pull a grate off, lift it straight up, don't drag it. If you drag it, you'll often end up with some scratch marks here, and you gotta look at this product for 20 years because that's a design life. You'll never forget those scratch marks. So on this particular configuration, I'm standing in front of a 30-inch contemporary, 30-inch transitional, and it has 4 burners, 2 9.2 thousand BTUs, one 12,000, and then a 18. We're gonna focus on this 12,000 BTU burner. Now if you notice, there's 2 sets of holes on this, one really down low and one a little bit closer to the mushroom cap. When you turn a burner on, every burner, regardless of your configuration, has a high range and a simmer range. That simmer range gives you that total control through the entire range of cooking. So we're going to focus on this burner. Let's turn it on. And here is the high in all its glory. Oh, right? We need this sear. This is what we need to sear meats or to do that high saute. Super important, about 5 to 7% of the time. We spend more time at somewhere other than sear. So how important is it to have control through the whole range? It's a game changer. Wolf is a master of heat transfer, gives you that full control. So I'm going to start to turn this down. And what you'll see is that still fire on the upper range until you get to here. And then regardless of your configuration, you push the knob in and turn it, and that extinguishes that top and lights the bottom. Now why is that important? If your range or burner has to cycle on and off to maintain temperature, it's always climbing or always falling. Wolf's dual stack burner really hones in on that steady heat. And from here, it goes all the way down. Every burner now, not the small one, not just the big one, all of them. And once it gets down, I don't know if I'll shield the light so you can see that blue a little bit. And once it's down there, you shouldn't have to hear it relight. That's the great, it's a steady heat. Now, so low that I can hold my hand over it. You can melt chocolate without a double boiler. You can hold delicate sauces. Hollandaise, somebody asked me one time, what's a delicate sauce? And then I decided tomato soup was as delicate as they needed to get. You know, tomato soup, it gets that burned volcano in the middle and it comes up. This, you can hold tomato soup or chili for game day for hours and not worry about it scorching the bottom of the pan. And you have this feature on every single burner. If you do go to the smallest burner, this is 300 BTUs at its smallest. This is the 9.2 is down to 100. So very, very instrumental control. Kind of like when I talked about the Induction having all that control through the lower part of the range, Wolf has given you that here as well. So I'm going to turn this off and put this grate back in place. And we're going to start cooking. We got pasta, water we said we started. We're going to get this grill pan warmed up. But now I'm going to start just a little saute of some other components that are in this dish. We're going to start with preheating this pan a little bit. Then we're going to add some tomatoes and just kind of let them sweat and break down a little bit. I'm not looking for a lot of color, but I am looking for, and it really helps if you turn the right burner on. I'm not looking for a lot of color, but I am looking for a little bit of wilting so that tomato gets soft, gives up some of its juice. That juice becomes part of the sauce in this case. So as we get this preheated, then we'll add some tomatoes to that. We're also going to add some garlic and some red chili flake. But here's a tip. You never add that first. I don't care what the recipe says. If the recipe says put the garlic in the oil first, there needs to be big pieces of garlic. If you put that finely minced garlic into hot oil, the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to burn. And you'll never get that bitter taste out of there. So I tend to add my garlic after something else is in the pan. And then within the first minute to 30 seconds, you'll smell the garlic. You'll have that aromatic. then you know that you're in the right spot. All right, let's add a little oil here. And again, looking for a little bit of wilting and giving up its juice, not necessarily a lot of color. Well, I did get a little sizzle though, so I had it warm enough for that. This is beautiful. I got these heirloom tomatoes today that are multicolored. It's just going to look beautiful when it hits the platter, when we platter this dish. And you can do this with just about any tomato shape. I just happen to like these beautiful small cherries. It's less work just to cut them in half and toss them in this pan. So I've got that going. I can hear it. It's starting to break down. Let's peek in on our pasta water. Almost. Look at that. It is, see the steam coming off there? It is almost, and you watch the entire process from beginning to end. That is that value of that boost feature on your induction cooktop. There is one other feature on the induction cooktop that I do want to talk about. I'm not using it today, but that's the bridge function. What the bridge function does is between two cooking areas on your surface, you can tie them together and control with one control. Think about a large roasting pan. You pull it out of the oven, you're going to make your pan gravy, or a flat griddle across two of them. By hitting bridge, what lies between the two controls, you're going to control those two surfaces with one control. It also is going to give you a nice even heating between both sections on there so that you're not going to have any flat spots or cold spots. So really, really nice. Depending on the size of your induction cooktop is whether or not you have any bridging. The 24, it comes in by 15-inch module, a 24-inch 3-burner, a 30-inch 4-burner, and a 36 5-burner. On that 36, there's actually 4 burners that can be bridged front to back or side to side. Really useful if you're doing something that you need that much heat and power. Let's give these another quick stir. I'm not going to add that garlic like we talked about. I'm going to let it really do its thing. Now, let's see if I've got enough heat on this grill pan over here. Over here, I'm just going to grill some lemon. Why? Because, you know, lemon and seafood goes together so well, and it's nice to have just a little bit of char on this lemon. It looks nice on the platter, and it'll make a great little flavor. Remember, food that is in its primary state has one flavor. Food that gets grilled or charred can get up to hundreds of flavors as you go through that slow charring process. Let's check in on our water. I want to go just a second more on that, and then we'll drop that pasta. One of the other things about the induction that I find so helpful is it has a built-in timer right here on the surface. So if you've got 3 things going on in your kitchen, you can set a timer by the pot that you're trying to measure and not worry about whether or not which timer went off. So when I drop this pasta, I'm going to set this timer for the length of time the pasta needs to get tender. We're going to go al dente because in the end, I'm going to move this pasta from here and finish it all in this saute pan with the tomatoes and the garlic and the red chili flake. Okay? Oh, we got nice little char going on those lemons. Starting to see some boil in my water. I'm going to add this pasta. I'm using fettuccine today. You can use any long pasta in this dish. You can even use short pasta. I just think it presents better with a little bit of long pasta. So let's put that pasta in there without dropping it all over the kitchen. Oh, beautiful. Boom. Okay. I do like to give it a quick stir just to make sure nothing's stuck together as it went in there, because I'm going to want that to be nice and separate and not stuck together. Now it's time to set my timer on this surface, and I'm sorry you can't see it from your perspective. You're just going to have to trust me. 10 minutes. I'm going to set the lid a little askew in case it starts to boil over. My lemon's going. My tomatoes are starting to break down. Let's take a shift over in front of another surface that I want to talk about for a few minutes as well. As I walk over here, what we're going to pick up next, I'm standing in front of a 48-inch dual fuel range. So it has a 9.2 thousand, a 20,000, an 18, and a 15 in this particular configuration. And then obviously this double griddle. And that's where I want to put my attention next. These burners function exactly like the burners we discussed in the other kitchen, but their layout is a little bit different. In the dual fuel range and the sealed range top and the gas range, you'll see these are sealed burners that are in a porcelain bed underneath. That'll be important when I start talking about cleaning tips towards the end of this session. You noticed on the cooktop it's a stainless steel. A little bit different cleaning regimen for those, but just as important. So I heated this griddle. Now in the double griddle, that's what this is configured as. You have two 11-inch surfaces. You have two heat zones, separately controllable. Think about how many times, when you look at this, I know you think breakfast. They don't even let us demonstrate breakfast, folks. This is so much about other parts of the day and how the meal comes together. Yes, you can use it for breakfast, but know that it's really good for other things. Fried rice, vegetables that are stir-fried vegetables, sauteed Brussels sprouts, pork, chicken, fish, everything can be cooked on here, and I can clean it faster than your skillet. If you think about how we cooked in a skillet before, we were always worried about overcrowding the pan. What happens when you crowd the pan? It cools off, things begin to steam and not saute. What I really want is I want these scallops. I've got scallops and shrimp today. I want nice crust on those scallops. I want a beautifully nice dark crust. So I'm going to add a little oil. Now, if you're getting this griddle for the first time, you want to make sure that you go ahead and season it. It's going to come from the factory with this beautifully shiny surface, and you want to make sure you go through the simple seasoning process. If you have any questions about that seasoning process, don't hesitate to reach out to any of our showrooms. But basically, you're going to clean off all of the shipping mineral oil. Then you're going to heat it up to 350 degrees. Make sure your vent's on. And then you will, turn it off. As it cools, you're going to add to a single griddle about a teaspoon of neutral oil. To a double griddle, you're going to add a teaspoon on each half. Wipe it in. Turn that back on. Repeat that cycle. Wolf says twice. Chef Mike says 3 times. I get much better results with 3 times. You'll get this beautiful dark patina in which everything is non-stick. And that's the whole goal. I'm going to season my seafood here. I've got shrimp and scallops. I don't like to season any of those things until right before I put them on the griddle, because they will start to release their liquids, and that's not going to give me the nice crust. Underneath this griddle surface, there's an infrared burner, and that infrared burner runs from front to back. One of the most things I like about this griddle the most is it doesn't matter where I'm cooking, I will get great results, and we're going to demonstrate that today. I'm going to put some scallops out there on that front end, and I'm going to put some back here all the way on this edge and let you see that there are no cold spots. I can get the same crust here, if I can stand that scallop up, same crust there as I do on the other side. All right, now we'll add our shrimp. On this double, as I said, there are 2 of those burners, so you can set anywhere between about 100 and 450. It never hurts to have a cool side and a warm side and take something going too fast for you. Now you'll notice when the dish finally plates that I have tails on my shrimp. Quick story. If you think about cooking with bone-in chicken, if you go to a restaurant and the tails are on the shrimp, it might be annoying at the table, but the chef is telling you the flavor that comes from that tail and the shell add to the dish. Super important, because with that, you end up with capturing all that extra flavor. It also gives you a nice tip to the edge. So never get annoyed. Just know that he considered it, or he or she considered it important enough to put on, leave on there. Not the whole shell, just that. Shrimp. Don't overcook them. They're usually done in 2 or 3 minutes. If they're cold, bright white, tails passing the head, that's overcooked. It'll probably be rubbery, bounce off the floor and through the window. What you want for that is I got a little pasta boil over here, gentlemen. I'm going to turn this off. And I'm going to ask that my compadre come out here and help me with this water. While we go back to the scallops. You want them to cook just enough so the tail approaches the head, like a C. If the tail goes past the head, that is overcooked, like an O. Can we save that, my friend? All right, nice work. We're not quite ready to turn those scallops. So this dish on this surface, I could also be doing a third thing over here, a vegetable of some kind. Not necessary in this particular case, but I do want that well-seared, seasoned seafood. Let's take a look back here and see how our scallops look. Not yet. They're non-stick, but they're not quite to that brown temperature yet. Let's talk about how you clean this griddle. We covered how you season it. When we're done, what you're going to do is use this bench scraper, commonly called bench knife, bench scraper. You're really just looking for a straight surface, and you want to scrape off anything that's stuck on this griddle right after cooking. You don't have to do the rest of it, but you want to do that because it's not going to get any better as the griddle cools. This front tray here is a little warm right now, but it is removable, and it's where I'm going to put anything in my cleaning process that needs to go away. Will go right in this little tray. So let's start turning these shrimp. So that process, you scrape it with that flat scraper, anything that's stuck to it. Then I set it at 250 degrees, and then I'll clean it with water. That cleaning process uses steam to lift all the impurities off the surface and clean it, and then you finish with 1 teaspoon of oil back on the surface for a single, 2 teaspoons for a full. You rub that in, and you're back in business. If you're entertaining and you don't want to mess with cleaning it at the time you're cooking, go ahead and scrape it off and then turn it off. But when you come back to clean, make sure that you have turned it back on, let it heat back up. 250 is kind of a random number, but I want it hot enough to boil water. Because what happens is, think of your cast iron skillet. When you heat it up, the pores of that metal open up, and there's fat trapped here. That's what makes it non-stick. So as it cools, right, those pores start to close. If I can steam clean it while they're still open, it lifts all the impurities off of that. I can scrape that off and then go back to it with my oil. Let's take a look at these scallops. I was hoping for a little darker crust, but they're totally done. Now let's look for a consistent crust. Is it consistent all the way to the back? Gil, how's our surface over there? We back in business? Thank you, sir. Our pasta water just kind of exceeded the limit of the pan, came out on the surface. If it had been electric, the old electric, much bigger mess. Because it's induction and it's not hot except where the pan is, that was an easy come in, step in, and wipe it up. I just didn't have my long arms to do that while I was standing here in front of the seafood. Did the timer reset, Gil, or did it stay good? Timer reset. We'll check that pasta for tenderness directly on there. I'm getting really close to these being done. I think my shrimp are done, as a matter of fact, so we'll pull them off. We're going to combine all this together. I want you to look at this shrimp, though. See what I mean by a C and not an O? The tail is approaching the head, but it's not passing the head. And because of that, that shrimp's not overcooked. Shrimp should be just as juicy as any other protein, and when you overcook it, it's just not as pleasant. It would be no different if you had completely peeled shrimp without the tails. No worries if you don't want to mess with those. Beautiful. think I'm going to snuggle my scallops right up beside these. Let's see if we got a little crust on the other side now. Yeah, there's a little crust there. We can go back over and finish this pasta dish over there in front of the saute pan where our tomatoes are just slowly breaking down. We'll add the other components to that. Then we'll finish with this lovely pasta dish. Now, don't know how well you can see it, but there are some remnants of what we just cooked on here. I'm going to turn it down to 250 so that we can steam clean it. And then I'm going to take my bench scraper and just scrape any of that stuff, and you can see what came off. It's just remnants of cooking. And I'm going to put that right in my little tray here. Once the tray is cool, I move it to the sink. I use regular dish soap and a regular sponge, either a blue scrubby or in this case, I don't like to use a green scrubby just because it is more abrasive. The blue scrubby gives you a great cleaning tool with no problem. So I've done the first step of this cleaning now. We'll let it cool down a little bit, and then we'll just simply add some water and steam it the rest of the way. When you're doing that, make sure you wear a glove because you are going to create steam, right? And that steam's going to come up. You don't want to burn yourself. The other thing this is going to do is it's going to take the rest of those impurities off. It's about 3/4 of a cup on a 11-inch griddle and about 1.5 cups on a full griddle. Okay, let's check back over in the middle, see what's going on, see how we're doing. Thank you, Gil, for taking care of us during that time. Let's see what my pasta's like. It's probably actually pretty close. Let's get a chance. You always want your pasta al dente, right? Which means to the tooth. It means you want it to have, yes, I hear you. It's not happy. Going on and off, folks. Let me unlock it, see if I can turn it off. Let's see what happens. Okay, so the pasta needs about 2 minutes. Wait for that. Meanwhile, let's get back to our tomatoes. Our lemon's got nice char on it. That looks beautiful. The pasta just needs a couple of minutes. I want to get that pasta water back on just for a couple of minutes. Not happy that we spilled that water on there. Okay. Now let's add a little bit of garlic. Now that these tomatoes are almost completely broken down, I did end up with just a little bit of color. But now let's add our garlic. This ought to add a real big punch of aromatics to this dish. If you're not a garlic fan, you want to put a little shallot in there, that's just fine. But you want something now to kind of make this feel like it is a pasta dish. But you can see the tomatoes are really broken down nicely. This is going to make a great, simple sauce without really adding a sauce. I can smell those. Beautiful. You can smell that garlic starting to bring on typically about 30 seconds worth of garlic in a hot pan. Gives you enough aromatics to do what you got to do. All right. Next, I'm going to add some red chili flake. Now, here's where the Diablo comes in. As much or as little as you like for your crowd. You know how they eat. You know what they expect. So you can adjust this as necessary, or you can add any other source of heat that you like. But traditionally, for an Italian dish, I like just a little bit of red chili flake. And now we've got the garlic, the tomato, and the red chilies. Beautiful. The next thing I want to add to this is the pasta. Let's see if we've gotten to the end point with that. Kind of got twisted with our little experiment in the middle. Let's see if we could boil over pasta. We succeeded. Perfect. Okay, the pasta is good. Let's see if we can carefully transfer that to this dish. Makes it really nice to have it close. I didn't even really have to fully drain it. Now, I used about 1 pound of pasta in this. for the tomatoes and about a dozen shrimp and a dozen scallops. So let's incorporate those tomatoes. And now I'm using the pasta to try to help deglaze this pan. It's pulling up all those little delicious bits that will provide all the flavor for this. Now, while I'm standing in front of this one, let's talk about cleaning this surface. The Wolf gas cooktops have a stainless steel bed, and it's beautiful, but there are some times when you're cooking on it that you will end up with some marks that you'd like to remove. Specifically, splatter, wipe it up right afterwards. I like to use a microfiber cloth. Make sure you're following the grain. It goes from left to right or right to left, and stay with that grain. If you can resist the urge to clean around the burner in a circle, you'll never have a ring that you don't like. Because if you scrub around this burner in a circle, you will end up seeing a stray mark that may not be what you want to look at. Additionally, if you're using a large pot, let's talk about a Dutch oven. Sometimes you'll get a burnishing ring on the stainless steel. This is where heat hits the bottom of that pan, reflects back down to the stainless steel surface, and you end up with this little brown discoloration, usually in a circle. Not the end of the world. Once it is cool, Wolf recommends using a product called Penny Bright. Penny Bright is actually on the label. Penny Bright says copper cleaner, and then further down it says and stainless steel. But this is the piece that they totally recommend to clean those burnishing marks. Again, it's kind of a cream based. You put it on there, let it do its work, and then clean with the grain of the stainless steel. These racks can be, once they're cool, put into your dish sink, scrub away on them with regular dish soap. You're not going to be able to hurt them. Microfiber cloth for light cleaning on the surface works great. On the Induction that Gil took care of us for us, you can clean that with a microfiber cloth once it's cool. And then sometimes I do use a little bit of, that comes with a cream polish. If you've ever had an electric cooktop, you had to use that polish all the time because food would hit it and burn and be a problem. Here, because the only part that's hot is where the pan is sitting, you don't get that. So you can even use, once it's cool, a little window cleaner if you need to get all the fingerprints and smudges off. There is a lock which allows you to wipe it without worrying about whether or not there are beeping and stuff going on. You can lock those controls and then clean it completely down. All right, got our pasta here. It's in this bowl. I think I got enough room. I think I'll add the seafood right in. Scallops, shrimp. I know our team is getting ready for lunch here. Got those all coated. So cleaning the Induction and cleaning this gas cooktop we talked about. We talked about cleaning the griddle. I haven't finished the last step on there, but that's how it's done. If you have a char, and remember I wasn't able to show you the char today, that process is just wipe any food off the grates when it's hot. Once it cools, if you still have stuck on food, you can lay that grate in a sink, cover it with a dish towel, and pour some boiling water over it. That will soften that food, and then you should be back in business. Underneath, there's a heat deflector that you can remove and clean. It's very straightforward, and it's also a black porcelain piece, so stuff doesn't get in really bad shape. All right, let's take this to the platter. Make sure all my burners off and not set my coat on fire. Oh yeah, look at this. This is going to be awesome. Now, cleaning under the porcelain burner wells on a sealed range top, on a dual fuel range, on an all gas range, that black porcelain burner well, those you can really clean and go to town with Barkeeper's Friend or Bon Ami. Both of those work great for that task. Wolf recommends them interchangeably as mild abrasives. Perfect for cleaning those. I tend to think if you go in there pretty quickly and wipe it out, you can keep it clean with a microfiber cloth. When you've had a smash burger night 2 nights in a row or something like that, you may have a little bit more. But just know, barkeeper's friend, a little bit of moisture, you can go to town. You do have to be careful about the holes in each burner. You don't want to put anything in there that might clog or prevent that beautiful, even flame all the way around. For that, I recommend if something gets in there, something brushed in there, you can use a toothpick or a bamboo skewer and just make sure those holes are clean. If on that aluminum ring that sits there, you see it's kind of the shinier color, the light gray color on the black porcelain, if that will get some stains and some browning on it too, it's perfectly fine. It's expected. If it's in a particular place or it's particularly heavy and bother you, I make a little bit of paste out of my barkeeper's friend and just lay it on that surface, being as careful as I can not to introduce it to the holes. It'll sit there for a few minutes. It will help lift those stains, and you won't have anything that's residual. And after I clean it with barkeepers, I just do a clean, nice wipe. I might do a microfiber wipe next to get any of that residue off. Then you're back in business. The grates on those can be cleaned just like these in your sink with a regular detergent. Now we're going to top this with all this delicious pasta. Seafood, scallops, shrimp, all doing their thing here. Now it wouldn't be pasta, even seafood pasta, without a little fresh basil. Beautiful. Now, let's take our lemons, and these lemons are super juicy when you char them like that. Let's put one up the front there. You got this beautiful char on these. They're really juicy and doing their thing. I'm going to retrieve this one. There's nothing wrong with that. That surface was clean. It's not clean now, but it easily wipes up. There's our lemons. Now let's put a little fresh basil on here. I got a fresh plant. This is the way I like to have my basil. I know it's as fresh as it can be. It won't be on season very long, but I just want to tear. Yeah, that is fussing at me. Let's take some big leaves off. And I'm going to tear this. Basil is one of those herbs you don't want to pre-cut it unless you absolutely have to. Because as soon as you cut it, it starts to oxidize and turn brown. So I keep this as one of the ones you can do right before you use it. Parsley, chop away. You're not going to hurt it. Sage, chives, all of those are fine. Basil will get a little brown. So I'm just going to tear it too. I'm not even going to put a knife in it. Sometimes using a knife bruises it. This way it'll stay nice and fresh. But more importantly, Lynn can probably already smell it from the other side of the room with this fresh basil. And then let's do a little bit of Parmesan. Now with seafood pastas, I can go either way with this on whether or not I would choose to put cheese on there. You know your crowd. I like a little. Spinach leaf down. Okay, do a little fresh. And then I like to put the Parmesan cheese on the table. If there's somebody else that wants a little more cheese than I put on their plate, then they're going to be able to put a little bit more. So, quick review. We talked about induction. We talked about how to clean induction. I cooked our pasta and our grilled lemons on induction. Super responsive, lots of control, easy to clean. We talked about our gas cooktop with the dual stack burners, also present on the sealed range top and the dual fuel range. Cleaning this we talked about. Go with the grain, keep it simple. Penny bright if you have those brown burnishing rings. I want to step back over just for a second, talk about that griddle top one more time, and then we'll come back and we'll take any questions. So this top is now ready to roll, to be cleaned. I'm going to take some regular tap water here. If you have something that really burned on there hard, you might want to use bubble water. Nothing with any sugar or flavoring in it, but the bubbles help stick to this stuff and make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to protect my arm just a little bit. Let's put this water on there, and we get this beautiful steam. I don't think that you can see it, but there's little impurities that are floating up on this griddle, and that's what you wanted it to do. I want to lift anything that It's not part of that original surface. Beautiful. Now the folks that are in charge of allergens, that's not us, have said this is enough to remove allergens from your griddle. I can tell you for sure it's enough to remove flavor. You can cook the scallops and shrimp there today. You can be very confident that tomorrow morning's pancakes will not taste like shrimp and scallops. And that's the beauty in cleaning it this way. I think you'll find if you are one of those folks who have a griddle, you'll use it for something every day. Now you can turn that completely off. And then the last thing I want to do is just take a little bit of this neutral oil and a paper towel. And I want to rub that in. And now my surface is ready to go for the next meal. All right, I'd like to come back in front of our dish there. Does anybody have any questions that we didn't end up covering during the session or that Lynn, our showroom manager, didn't end up answering? Now's a great time to put those up. Quiet on the front. That's awesome. Thank you for joining us here at the Culinary Scene. Please come back for more inspiration, recipes, use and care, and ownership series like this. Have a great day.